Welcome back to another episode of the Within Reach podcast. I am in a completely different studio today, so if you are watching this back, you'll see that it's a different backdrop behind me. We are here today at Damn Good Studios, and I am so excited for this episode. And I know I tell you guys all the time how excited I am when I bring guests onto the podcast, but today I have somebody that is so special, and you guys are going to get so much value from this woman. She is Tamara Meyer. She is my mentor, but an incredible, incredible woman who used to be in the fitness space, has then moved into the business space. She's a speaker. She's really well known in the industry because she is changing the game when it comes to business and also when it comes to events. Now, I am really, really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
What an intro.
Was that okay?
That was amazing.
Great. I feel like I've got my mentor on me, so I'm like, I have to be extra good today.
I think you were great.
Perfect.
We've done my episodes and we've done now we're doing yours. So it's been one of those big, beautiful days where we get to spend time together. So I'm excited to be here, my love.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to go deep with this. I have quite a few questions I want to ask you. I just want to start off first and foremost with people who don't know who you are, because I know there'll be a lot of people that know your name and there'll also be some that don't.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? What do you do? What's your background?
I love this question. So my name's Tamara, and I like to start with the fact that I was born in Germany. Not a lot of people know that. And my mum's from Brazil. And I always bring that up because people assume that have had it easy, but my life's always been brought up from a really dysfunctional family. And I bring that up because it's part of my story. It's part of why I do what I do. But I moved from Germany to Australia. And I just found my love and passion for always wanting to help people. But I sort of started in the dance world, the acting world. I became a professional performer. And the reason why I got into that was because when I was 8 years old, the teachers used to say to my mum, Tamara's got ambition. She's a little bit distracted. She's a little bit out there, but she can't read, she can't write, she can't speak properly. So my mum put me into dancing and acting school. And that's how I fell in love with performing. And I fell in love with wanting to almost be an inspiration for people, especially because there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes for me. And I found that performing for me was my way of, I guess, expressing what was really going on inside of me. And it was my way of escaping. But I also found this love that I've always told people, follow your dreams and believe in anything, like you'll be able to achieve it. And I think because I was always a dreamer, I'd watch movies. I'm a movie fanatic. I love musicals. And I think I've always had this knowing that I was meant to be on stage. But my story goes, I went through the world of being a professional dancer. It wasn't for me because I ended up having a panic attack, and I left that scene, and I then veered into the fitness space, which is where you and I sort of connected for the first time. And the fitness space became my stage of working on sort of the physical self, and I found that I was able to, get off antidepressants. I was addicted to Stilnox, and I was also taking Duromine for a really long time in the dance space. So when I stepped into the fitness space, I found my way of helping people in that space. And I thought that was my passion, my dream. And lo and behold, I built my business in that space. My marketing, I marketed myself as a fitness coach. I was a WBFF pro. It's now FMG. But I think the pinnacle moment for me, and we talk about our moments, right? And it was when I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. And that was 6 weeks before I became a pro. And that was probably the first taste I got of wanting to work on myself, like actually wanting to work on myself. And, I think there was just a lot of suppression, a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with. And the pinnacle stuff that I really hadn't dealt with was being homeless, coming from a dysfunctional family, moving houses all the time. And I think it just all caught up, right? And that's where it opened my eyes to working on my inner health and seeing that there was more to life than just helping people physically and spiritually. And I found my calling more on the business side of things, because when I started to work on myself, I started to realize that when I brought people in the life coaching space, because that's where essentially that led me to where I am now, I had this way of helping women focus on their careers. And it's interesting because my past, my pain, which was being homeless, ended up being my story and my purpose as to why I love helping women and men too to build their businesses in the online space, to help them build their empires. And it's crazy because you and I had an episode that we did before. It's like you don't know where life can take you. And it was those moments of time where I knew that the message within me was always there, but I feel like I've now found the stage of what I'm truly meant to be, and that's, being a speaker. And I've really narrowed my message around, authenticity, around branding, and of course, like scaling as a personal brand, and that's kind of my story and how I am where I am now.
Yeah, and what's so great about that is, as you said, like there's many moments that kind of lead you to where you go next.
Yeah.
So I want to speak on those moments. So obviously the first moment was when you were a dancer and you were going through some stuff in your family life, and obviously you were quite young at the time, right? What led you to fitness from that, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I was drunk and I had taken 2 Stilnoxes, and I remember embarrassing myself on FaceTime with a guy I was seeing, and I just remember feeling so much shame that I was, predominantly telling people that to be an inspiration and to be all this thing, but really deep down I was this really insecure, broken girl. And so it was kind of that horrible, shameful moment that embarrassed me to walk into the doctors and go, I need you to take me off the medication and, get me, like, just turn me away. And I think that's what led me into then wanting to work on myself physically, because obviously dancing had brought up a lot of stuff in myself, but it was the fitness stuff that kind of made me almost lean into my genetics. It was almost like everything in the dance world, I was going against my genetics. I was doing all the wrong things. Whereas I opened up this beautiful, this healing phase of me really honing in on like looking after myself and getting off all the medication. So I think that was my first moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you and I have spoken about this. So many coaches in the fitness space are there because they've gone through something in their life where fitness has helped them, right?
Yeah.
And it's another instance with that for you. What was the kind of goal when you first entered the fitness space? Was it to just look after yourself, or were you feeling that you were still not quite where you needed to be with your like mindset, mental health, your physical health?
I think I was always like a bit of a competitor within the dance world. Like I loved being someone that competed and performed. And so when I went into a supplement shop and they're like, you have legs to compete, I was like, really? I'm being seen as who I am. And so that was, I think, the turning point, that it was more about competing. And I think that's where I think I really just wanted to be good at something.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't really hone in on my craft as a dancer, actor, really in a space of like doing the work like I thought I did. And then when I had an opportunity to work on my craft as a bodybuilder, I think that's why I did it. But also because I felt there was a bit of an obsession there as well.
Yeah.
I think.
So something that you kind of had still not addressed by
Yeah.
the sounds of it. Because
Yeah.
it's like you were in the dance world, you weren't quite where you wanted to be with that, moved
Yeah.
into fitness, but it sounds like you didn't move into fitness. I mean, you did. You moved into it from a place of I want to get off this medication and all of that.
Yeah.
But then you still kind of found a way to be like, I guess, competitive and a way to be very narrow-minded with it
Yeah.
rather than focusing on health, right?
100%. It was almost going from one weird addiction to another in a way. And I think like even dancing, you're constantly being, compared to and judged, and it was a bit superficial, and I loved the industry because I learned so many things and discipline and structure. But then in the fitness space, there was still that obsession of how you are looked at and perceived, in my eyes anyway. So I think for me, I found this obsession, excuse me, that if I looked a certain way, I'd be accepted and loved.
Yeah. And you know what? I've been there too, so I completely get it. And so how many years did you compete in bodybuilding?
I think it was 5 years.
So 5 shows.
No, I did more. I think I started in 2014. I competed in 2016. I think I did like 11 shows in 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to start this section of like your journey off with what are some of the things that you fell in love with around bodybuilding and around just like competitive space and fitness?
I love this question. What I loved about it, I think there was this beautiful element that I had something to work towards, and it was like the routine that was there. Even though, the routines were a little bit full on, it was like I had something to wake up for. So I loved that. I loved the teammates. I made some amazing friends that are my best friends now. And I think it did teach me a lot of stuff, even if it was taught in a way that I learnt more about myself and sort of the habits and stuff that I had when it came to food and nutrition, what not to do, what was seen as at the time healthy. I look at some of the things I did, I was like, wow, that was probably not. So I think the things I did love was definitely, it taught me discipline and structure. it taught me not my limits, but more about what I could do if I really worked and focused so hard on something. And the mind is really your weapon. That was something I really took away from the fitness space. And it's something that I believe, because of that experience, has brought me to where I am now with the discipline in business. So that's definitely been probably the biggest thing I've really loved about it.
I love everything you've said, because I like dabbled in that, and even just throughout my journey, I agree with every single part.
Yeah.
And I think those parts you do then learn and take away into other areas of your life. And I think personally for me, like that's why I love fitness so much and love business so much, because they're both very different but very much the same, right?
Literally.
So what are some of the things you hated about it?
Oh, that's hard. I think what it did to me. I think not because I don't like to put blame on the sport or, you know, the things that I was sort of seeing and feeling, but I think I felt that it made me really judge myself a lot, that if I didn't have this thing or if I wasn't number one, then who was I to be loved or to be successful? And I think I had really let myself down, that I fell into this trap of like, when I didn't do this thing, was I going to be loved and seen and appreciated and respected by people? So I think that's what I hated about it, because I grew almost this obsession that if I became a pro, then all this amazing things would happen in my life. And it sort of did to a degree, but if you removed those identities and labels, it's like, was I actually truly happy within myself? So I think that's what I really did hate about it. I think there was also a lot of like I don't want to say superficialness, but fakeness sometimes. Like a lot of people in the fitness industry I find are amazing human beings, but I find that they can be quite like cliquey and nasty in some ways, some way, shape or form too. And I think if you're not in that world and you're out of it, like I think that like you're kind of like forgotten. Yeah.
Do you know what's funny is I've noticed a bit of that myself, but I think as well you notice the things that are within your awareness, right? And so it'd be interesting to kind of look at it from someone, maybe a coach or someone in the industry who's like never even been in that world. They probably wouldn't even see that. Yeah. But it would happen in, I'm sure, like a lot of different industries too.
Well, you know, it's funny, babe. Like I remember when I decided to no longer be in that world, that I felt like it was almost like I was breaking up with it. And it took me a while to do it, but then I realized I think I was meant for more.
Yeah.
And that was just one part of my life that I was able to experience, that it brought me so many amazing memories and so many life lessons and so many things that we can obviously touch on when it comes to the resilience and the discipline and the perseverance. I think that was something I really truly am grateful for. But yeah, it's almost like there's more to life than just competing, and that's something I had to part ways with.
Yeah. Okay. So you were competing and you were running your fitness business. Talk to me about the fitness business. Like, what were you doing in your fitness business?
I love this question. So I talk about this all the time, because I think I thought I had a really good successful fitness business, but looking at it now, I built almost this incredible business in the online space based on almost the perception of what I was like in social media, on Instagram. And then when I look back to the growth I've had now as a business mentor and speaker, it's funny, like the things I was doing back then, I was obviously helping women lose weight. I was supporting clients with comp prep. I kind of did all the things in a sense, right? And I think I narrowed my niche down eventually, where I started to implement the mindset stuff too. But I think where I found my groove was really essentially after I became a pro, because I had used the complex post-traumatic stress almost as a way to be a point of difference, that I started to see that fitness wasn't just about training and nutrition. There was this missing thing, that because I won that show, I did all this groundwork prior to it with neuro-linguistic programming. I was meditating. I was doing a lot of journaling. I was doing surface level stuff, but it changed the game for me on how I wanted to get my clients results. I almost kind of wanted to start with the mindset and implement the fitness, the training and nutrition stuff as well. So I think when you asked me that question, what was I doing? I had built an online business, and I was essentially wanting to build a space for women to come in to really focus on being the best versions of themselves. And I know people throw that all the time now when it comes to building a business, but I truly believed it, because I was like, fuck, if I've gone through this, I wonder how many other women are feeling like this right now, you know, outside of comp, outside of trading. Like, what do they feel when they go to bed at night? Do they lie there feeling really content and happy, or they, you know, going in circles with their minds and anxiety and feeling like this unworthiness. And so that was kind of what I really loved about the fitness space and the online business I built. And then obviously we went through COVID, and that was a pretty pinnacle moment for myself, because it's like me and Loz, one of my best friends, we had built this business online, and we had people making fun of us prior to COVID, filming content at the gym, doing educational videos, doing vlogging, talking about our goals, showing up online. And then all of a sudden, the world shuts down, and now we're like, oh, wow, we should listen to what they're doing. So it was really interesting how it all unfolded, because we were kind of the OGs of fitness.
Yeah, like when Tamara speaks about Loz, she's talking about Lauren Simpson, which I know a lot of people listening to this will know who Lauren is. Yep. So like Lauren was obviously in the bodybuilding space as well, yep. and she's your best friend. Yep. And, like you are right, because even back, or just even before COVID times, before I even knew you, I definitely looked up to you guys and thought, oh, wow, like this is very different. And online was not really a thing until COVID, when people went, oh, how do I continue to keep my business growing, right? So it's an interesting one. And it's a very good reminder that if you truly believe in something you're doing, don't worry about what other people have to say, right?
Yeah.
How did you guys navigate through that?
I think I always looked to Loz for advice for this, because she was always someone that if she was filming content and people made fun of her, she's like, do you know how much money I'm making right now from what I'm doing? Not even that. It was like, I'm helping people because of this video. And that was something that, now like you and I would be at a cafe and we're having a wine after this. And we'd probably get our phones out and film, and there's like no judgment.
Normal.
It's just normal. Yeah. Whereas it is normal now. But back then people would look at us, give us death stares. But the thing that Loz said to me was this, and during COVID, she's like, we're ahead, so we need to keep going, as opposed to getting complacent and just like letting, this time in life to either slow down or pivot and keep the momentum going, which has been a theme for you recently.
I really love what you said there. I don't know why that just landed so hard, but when you're like, we're ahead, we just need to keep going. Yeah. Because that just shows like the tenacity and like continuing to show up, right?
100%. And that's like my biggest message now, when we talk about messaging in business, it's like, what are you known for? And I've really honed on the showing up thing, because
100% you have. Like you're like never not showing up. I'm like, you just know there's always going to be something from you, and you're in everyone's, I guess, eye line, right?
It's important, but I feel the way I'm showing up is very different to back then. And I feel like I always want to bring so much transparency in this space. I talk about like, yes, we're ahead of the game, and yes, we were on momentum, but like I think the difference back then and now I was so insecure, and I was uncertain. I was feeling like, am I ever going to get there? And there was a lot of like doubt. And I know this is, relatable to so many of the listeners, but I feel like sometimes we get in our own way because we think we're not doing enough and who's going to listen to us. But I think this is a great reminder that while we're still building a business, or whether you're listening right now in your fitness space and you're like, are these results ever going to come? There's this beautiful thing that when you keep going, even if the results aren't there straight away, there's going to be that moment where things just start to shift.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that we keep showing up regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, well, because what's the alternative, right? The alternative is that we stay where we are and we don't move forward. So, it's always that kind of dance of, do you want to be someone who is like, what if, or do you want to give it a go? And even if it doesn't work out, you know that you've given it your best shot.
Yeah.
I mean, when it specifically comes to fitness, it's very black and white. It's if you do the work, you get the results, right? So that's what I love about the fitness space, is that, there's no dancing around with it. And I say to my clients, if you guys just do the program, you do the plan and you show up, you are going to get the results, because this is evidence-based. Like, we know that this is actually proven to work. But as much as people think in business, maybe it won't work, to a degree, it's actually kind of evidence-based too, because if you're following the right structures and protocols and you're on the right path, how won't it work,
Yeah. And
I was just going to say, I think people need to remember that.
It's about doing the reps, right?
Yeah, correct.
100%. And I feel there is such great correlation when we talk about business and fitness and getting the results that we want. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Or 4 weeks in, like you'll start to see maybe water retention going down. But in your business and anyone growing that, you will have to work on it every day.
Yeah, for sure. So you were in a really great place with your fitness and your fitness business, right? So you were doing really well. We hit COVID times. You were feeling like you were starting to figure out who you were, but you weren't there yet. Yeah. And obviously there was a part of you that wasn't 100% fulfilled. So what happened? Like, how did you go from fitness into deciding you never wanted to do that anymore?
It's funny. I think a lot of the choices I made was based on what I saw other people do. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that because it was a passion of mine to be a dancer actor. And then I did it, but it didn't feel quite authentic. So I changed and pivoted. And the fitness was like, oh, yeah, okay, here's where I get to do the thing. And then it's like, not quite helping people in a way that I wanted to. Let me see what happens. And it was like breaking up during COVID was horrible, but great lessons in that. And I talk about this all the time. I was in a studio apartment, 2 cats, broken, so sad. And I decided to study life coaching. I said to you girls, I've been told to keep going. Momentum's key. But I think I had stopped learning for a bit. I felt like in the fitness space, I had done all the work I wanted to. And I was really into learning more around like personal development. Like I'd sat in that like a studio apartment crying and just like, why me? And just figuring out like, why am I so like sad? It was almost like hitting me in the face. And Tony Robbins was one of my biggest moments of time where when I watched him and engaged in his YouTube, I honestly think he saved my life because I was just so in like captivated by what he was saying. And that got me into wanting to learn neuro-linguistic programming and everything in life coaching. And it was like, wow, okay, I can see something here that I'm really driven by. And I started to notice how I was speaking about things. And I started to see that while I was finding my way, it's almost like it changed more about this level of certainty within, where it wasn't just about, oh, she's doing that, so I'm going to do it. It was like, I'm doing this because this feels really right for me. And I think that was when I worked with a mentor and she was like, why are you doing fitness still? I'd go to the gym, I'd train, I would get my content creator at the time to help me film exercises. I get really angry and resentful. It was like, didn't feel right for me anymore. Do you know what the lesson was in that? Health became a personal value of mine, but not so much as a business value.
Talk on that for a minute.
Well, I talk about values and it's what's important to you, but I think what really hit the nail on the head was we did values exercise. And I always believe that health is always going to be a part of my life from a personal perspective. It's not what I want to do for business. It's not what I want to teach. Even though I help coaches when it comes to building businesses and I'm evolving more and more about that. But my business values have always now been about authenticity, playing big, freedom and exciting life and creativity, and personal development too. And so health wasn't really there anymore. It maybe had been, but it wasn't really there. Or maybe it was never really there, but I'd fallen into fitness as something that had helped me personally go through all the stuff I'd done. But was it something that I wanted to get paid for anymore? No. And I just decided not to do it anymore.
Yeah,
I stopped. I did it. I did no more fitness stuff. It was really interesting. I just remember I was like, fuck, how am I going to transition out of this? That was a big thing for me. I was like, how do I just, change my messaging, my direction, my identity?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you next, right? Is like, well, for anyone listening who's like, wow, this is resonating, like I'm not in a position where I want to be, whether you are a business owner wanting to shift gears or, even somebody that's listening to this that just works in a career or a job that they are realizing maybe they don't like. How do you make that identity shift or how personally did you kind of go through that and figure out how to become someone that you weren't yet that you wanted to be?
It was hard. Like it wasn't easy. It wasn't like a thing I just decided and then it was just like junk. But I always used my platform as a way to express what was going on. And I think that was almost like a way for me to start inviting people into my world as to what was happening. I almost felt like I never wanted to put anything on my social media that wasn't that was fake. And so I think I always felt like I had to owe it to my audience to tell them what was going on as opposed to them just going, what the fuck's going on with her? And so it was almost like this permission slip where I was like, I'm going in a new direction. And it was kind of slow because I sort of went into mindset, life coaching, and then it was sort of like my identity shifted. But when I did the whole business shift, it was literally more around, hey, I'm starting this thing. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'd love for you guys to come on this journey with me. And that kind of just became something that just flowed really, really well. I actually got a tattoo about flow, and it was just letting things flow in time as opposed to it being forced. Yeah. And I think I allowed it to flow online and flow for me too, so that I felt like when I changed identity, I was ready for it.
Yeah, it's like you kind of just let it progressively happen rather than cutting ties straight away. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, because I wasn't saying I was a business coach until Queendom was born.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like the rebirth for me.
Yeah, because do you know what's funny? I actually started with you just as you were in that transitioning phase, right?
Yeah.
So what I remember is, you know, for me, my story and how we kind of met was I was moving into the online space, and my partner and I'd moved to Perth, and I was like living in Perth, no one that I knew in Perth, right? And I'm like, okay, I've just brought my business online. Now what? And you were just happening to run a masterclass like for a couple of days. And I'd been following you because you were in the fitness space. So I thought, well, I'll jump on and see what this is all about. And I just remember like so many takeaways on that first day. And I still had 2 days to go. By the end, I was like, I really want to work with you. Yeah. And it's been really cool to watch because obviously, I actually don't know if you remember this. We've spoken about it before, but when you were in your fitness days, you did some content.
At Zara Fitness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was there and we kind of crossed paths, and I just remember going,
We got a photo.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find this fucking photo,
I don't know if we have it though. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I just remember going, oh my God, she's here. Like, because you were just like this big name in the industry, and I was a bit mesmerized, to be honest.
It's so funny because I don't think that of me, and we spoke about it on your podcast.
Yeah. And so for me though, then to see you move into this life coaching space, and then you were helping me with business, and just to see where it is now, it's like a whole different ball game, right? It's a different kettle of fish. What do you do now? I mean, I know, but the listeners don't know.
And let's really bring that up, right? Because I feel like it's okay to not know what you're doing or what your title is. I work with so many beautiful humans now where they're like, but who am I? What's the name? What's my positioning statement? What's my bio? It's like, babe, figure it out, and you'll hone in on your craft. And now what I really help women with is showing up authentically online, selling through storytelling, and scaling with a personal brand. And that's like the 3 concepts I've really gone hard on, like, and it's based on the stories of my life. And it's like seeing that my zone of genius has really been like, I've been so good at helping people build personal brands, and I found a really beautiful way to sell with stories, because I think people do really connect on a deeper level when we've got those stories to share. And I think it really creates a new way of selling online, because people have just sort of jumped online and kind of gone with what everyone else is doing. Yeah. And so the showing up part has just been like really just that honing in of your authentic self. And part of, I guess, the story I share on stage is like I showed up as different variations, but I wasn't really true to who I was. And that's been big for so many women and men now who work with me. It's like owning who they are and letting that be seen in the online space, because I think when we show up pretending to be someone we're not, or our negative self or pretend self, it's going to attract either no one or just not aligned clients. I want to be your people, and you've been my people from the very beginning, you know? Yeah.
So what I would love to know, what are a couple of patterns you've picked up on now that you work with people in this space, on like the things that maybe they're either consecutively not doing, or the things that is like a pattern that people do that maybe isn't serving them, or a way they hold themselves back, you know?
I think the big thing I keep thinking about is commitment. Like they say they're committed when things are good, and then when things get hard, it's like, nah, fuck you.
Yeah. And do you know what's so interesting about that is we can relate this directly back to fitness as well.
It's self-sabotage.
It is 100% self-sabotage. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's that they don't believe in themselves, or they just think it's too hard. But it's like in those moments where things are getting hard is where you need to be more committed in itself, right? It's like otherwise we'd all be doing the things and getting the results we want in fitness and business when things are always fucking good.
Yeah. And like I think as well, just coming from a perspective of leaning on your coach or mentor in those moments, and I think so many people don't know how to do that. They like pull back is what I've noticed.
Yeah. But you lean in more, and I love that about you.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, I can't do this on my own. If I'm struggling, I need help. But it's like so many people are afraid to ask for help when they need it.
And maybe that's a big thing too that I've noticed, is that there's almost like I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be like just sharing my struggles. When isn't that funny though? When I was in the fitness space, no one wanted to talk about their problems and struggles because it was almost like not safe to, or that they felt like they were weak, right? But now it's almost like one of the biggest things that I want to get more of our clients, and you do this so well, is like coming to you when things are not good. Yeah. You know, because when people sort of disappear or start to not show up, that's when you can see red flags coming in, that they're just they're really about to self-destruct. Yeah. And you probably see that with your fitness.
I see it all the time. And like, to be honest with you, and this is my own experience, but when clients start to pull back, I notice and I start to communicate with them more, but then they pull back more. Yeah. And then I don't think it's because I'm communicating more. I think they just are in their own world that they're just pulling back. And then all of a sudden it's like they don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I find in business coaching, I find that when you set the standard at the start, and I've been a lot better at doing this. It's like it's a disservice to you if you don't show up and you don't communicate and you don't recognize when you're self-sabotaging. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned over the years, because when I have started in the business space and I had clients and I thought everything was going great, and then they just go, bye. Yeah. It was because I didn't speak my truth and I didn't hold a standard and authority. Yeah. So I definitely see that, babe.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, I mean, you and I have spoken about this, the consciousness level of business owners is a lot greater. And so I think there's two parts to this. The first one being, in my personal experience with clients, even if you have set the standard or if you are communicating or you're doing extra for them to help them in those moments, their consciousness level of what's actually going on and how they're self-sabotaging is so low that it's just not, they're not helping themselves, but they don't realize what's playing out. Yeah. But then in the business space, when that happens, majority of the time they know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. And so it's like, what's worse, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they're very self-aware, but they're choosing not to do it.
Yeah. So it's like,
well, the people that are not aware. Yeah. You're like staying in the same thing.
That's right. I think it's all learning though for everyone though. You know, I think even in situations where that sort of stuff happens, whether it's, you know, on our part or on their part as clients, it becomes something where everyone learns something from it. There's always a takeaway. Yeah. And you learn how to do it better next time. Yeah.
I think my biggest thing I'm learning now more is to say no to people that I don't feel will be good for the services I provide. I think I was always like, I need to make this sale, I'm going to get them over the line. And I say that because I know I can help them. But there's sometimes this beautiful element where you go, you know what, this might not just be the right fit for me. So I think I've learned also over the years is like qualifying quality people too.
Yeah, which you've spoken to me about recently. Yeah. And like we've got some strategies in place for that.
And you're doing fucking well, my love.
Which I'm excited about. So I've got a couple of final questions before we finish up.
Yes.
The first question that I have is for anyone who's listening to this right now who's thinking, wow, I really am in a position where I would love to step into my authenticity, or I'd like to step into more of what I actually want, but I don't even know what that looks like. Where do they start?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like the first piece with authenticity is more about who are you behind closed doors. And so I feel like it's having those conversations with yourself. It's like, what are you not showing to people that is really you, but you're just too scared to? So I think it's the self-awareness piece and going into a bit of a process of like, okay, who am I when people are not watching? Am I happy with that person? Am I wanting to show more of that person? How does that feel for me? And sometimes it's about navigating what you're I hate saying the word ready because we're never ready, but it's almost like, what do you feel like you could lean into exploring more that you want to share? So I think start with the awareness piece, leaning into, you know, what you want to start to show online. What was the other part of the question?
That was it. Just like, what could they do to show up if they don't know how?
I feel like I think what's really great in this space is, the self-awareness, starting to share your audience, like more of you, but starting with the things that can become more of interest for your audience as well. So for example, if they don't know that you sleep with socks on because your mum used to tell you that if you sleep with no socks on, you're going to get sick. And I think like it's also that permission slip too, that if you start to let your audience know you're doing something different and you just want to see how it goes, they go, she's human, she's relatable, she's starting out, I'd love to see this and I want to support that. And I think that's how you'd start.
Yeah, it's a bit of curiosity, right? Yeah. People are nosy, like in a good way. I mean, sometimes in a negative way, but people are nosy, so let them be nosy, you know?
I think too, like when you get more of a feel of authenticity and you show parts of you that people are like, wow, she's sharing about her partner and their relationship problems, like I feel like you'll start to understand how much more we're all so similar and alike. And we all have the same fears and the same judgment and the same, we all just want to be loved, right?
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's really nice because it's a very good like perspective, you know, that we are all just doing our best and trying to figure it out, you know, whichever way that looks.
And I want to end with that, my love. Like I think I'm still learning to love myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think this is also for the listeners, like I don't have my shit together. I'm still fucking like working on it. But I think that gets to be your permission slip right now to, you know, start to explore that and just be kind to yourself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree because I think it's always going to be a work in progress, right? Yeah. For sure. One last question that I have is, what is it now that you do? How do you help people? And how can people lean more into your world? Because obviously you share so much about my world. I want people to know more about your world.
So it's funny, I'm building something at the moment that I'm like, fuck yes, I can't wait to talk about it, but I can't right now. But what I've really found that I love is that I'm different, and we spoke about being a point of different, and I want to essentially help people bring out their weirdness in the online space. And so what I'm helping companies, queens, coaches really bring out is finding their stories and how they can sell that online and essentially build a business like that. Because I think a lot of people have either not really put energy into personal branding, and maybe have started a business, but they've done the systems, the processes and stuff like that, and they haven't gone in and built who they are to be a point of difference. So that's what I love to do. I really love helping people find their unique voice, their personality, find their stories, put it together and build frameworks around that and create their queen product too. And then obviously outside of that with the event side of things, I teach this on stage, and I think that has been one of my biggest passions right now. Is like I found my stage and my calling. It's like I love social media. I love strategizing social media. I love personal branding. I love putting all the colors and tonalities and things like that together. And then I love selling. And I want people to make money. And that's essentially what I do.
Yeah. And how can people find you?
Oh, yes. And how you can find me.
Most important part.
Tamara Meyer Coach Instagram. I also have a podcast, Keys to the Queendom. And YouTube as well, which is Keys to the Queendom as well.
Yeah, perfect. I am really stoked. I feel like there's so much in this that people can take away, regardless of whether they're in fitness, business, just wanting to get to a goal, trying to figure out who they are, just like listening for shits and gigs, either or.
Yeah, because we're not serious here.
Not at all. But honestly, I feel like there's a lot of points here that people will take away, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being here.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful I got to be on your podcast. I was waiting for you to ask me.
Yeah, I know. It's been so long, hasn't it?
I was like, is she going to ask me?
Yeah, I think it's just because it's always been like trying to tee it up, you know. But I'm glad that you're here, and I'm really proud of you too, because like obviously I've seen where you've come from, and I think I haven't really told you that, but I look up to you so much, and I just feel that there's just going to be so much coming in the next few years, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I love you.
I love you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I know. You put me on the spot. That's why I had to. Anyway, wrap this up. Wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know in the comments below if you have any key takeaways from today, and we will see you soon.